In theory, it's a winnable race for Biden. But the question is, can he do the things he needs to do to win? And when you look at even recent historical context, nobody with this low of a job approval rating as an incumbent president has ever won. If they're going to make a move against Biden, though, they got to do it this weekend. They can't keep dragging this out. They can't keep waiting for another moment, another excuse.
There's a first time for everything. And today, for the first time, I'm going to go ahead and say Chuck Todd is correct. Things are not looking good for Joe Biden at all. And Democrats do need to act if they want a shot at beating Donald Trump. And it appears that they do have a plan in place. Now, Biden, of course, refuses to drop out, and the Democratic National Committee plans on going forward with an early virtual roll call vote to essentially nominate Biden before the Democratic convention. Now, initially, the virtual roll call vote was supposed to be done specifically to hit a deadline to ensure that Biden would be on the Ohio ballot. But Ohio has agreed to push back their deadline until after the Democratic National Convention. And so you don't need to do the roll call vote anymore. But the thinking is they want to do the roll call vote to essentially solidify Biden as the Democratic nominee ahead of the convention to avoid any contested convention type situation.
Yeah, people at the DNC are still talking about Ohio as if they didn't pass the bill, but they did. So when you see them saying that, understand they know they're lying.
Yeah.
It's not just that they're lying, but it could be an accident. No, they're doing it on purpose.
So Ohio's new deadline, initially it was before the convention. They've now pushed it until after the convention. So the new deadline is September 1st. Now, Axios writes that the DNC moved toward the virtual vote before the debate in response to the Ohio situation, but now they're not changing gears. And there are congressional Democrats who are not happy about this. And apparently they're circulating a letter to see how many Democratic lawmakers will be willing to sign it, which pushes the DNC to not have that virtual roll call, right? And so one House Democrat told Axios the following: people are back to being angry at Biden, and a push to sign on to this letter is going around to replace the Biden.
No, the replace Biden movement is back.
They're back. Okay, so they're back. They haven't given up, which is good to hear, because I was under the impression that they had given up, especially after the horrific assassination attempt on Donald Trump. I thought they were just going to drop everything and move forward with Biden. But it seems like those efforts to push him out and maybe have a more competitive Democrat run against Trump, those efforts are still very much alive. Here are some of the excerpts, by the way, from the letter itself, which Axios managed to obtain a copy of. It says, quote, "We respectfully but emphatically request that you cancel any plans for an accelerated virtual roll call and further refrain from any extraordinary procedures that could be perceived as curtailing legitimate debate." Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together, we can accomplish anything. Support our work and join us at tyt.com/team.
Yeah. So look, we're going to get to even most establishment candidate of all time, Adam Schiff, turning on Biden in a second. But understand that if you're doing a virtual roll call a month before the convention, because you're panicked that the candidate is going to have the delegates, his delegates, the ones that voted for him, the ones that he handpicked, do a rebellion against him because he's so weak, then you have the wrong candidate. If you're lying about the need for a virtual roll call when everyone knows you're lying, just so that you could hurry up and get Joe Biden to be the candidate, you got the wrong candidate. I mean, nobody's was asking for a virtual roll call for Trump earlier. They love Trump. They're very happy with their candidate, right? So nobody was asking for that for Barack Obama. They're asking for that for Joe Biden because of how incredibly weak he is. Then he shouldn't be the candidate. That's an accidental admission on their part about how weak Biden is.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Adam Schiff. He had done a cable news interview about a week or two ago, and he, of course, expressed some alarm about Biden's debate performance and what it could mean for down ballot races. And so he apparently was at a fundraiser, and he said something a little more candid than that. If Biden remained, not only would he lose to former President Donald J. Trump, he could be enough of a drag on other Democratic candidates that the party would most likely lose the Senate and miss an opportunity to win control of the House, Schiff said at a fundraiser in New York. And then there's a direct quote from Schiff where he says, "I think if he is our nominee, I think we lose," Schiff said during the meeting, according to a person with access to a transcription of a recording of the event. And we may very, very well lose the Senate and lose our chance to take back the House. So you can understand why there would be congressional Democrats willing to sign on to that letter. And so Representative Jared Huffman from California has been circulating this letter to his colleagues to see who will be willing to sign it. There are a few who have already committed to signing it, including Representatives Susan Wild from Pennsylvania. That's a swing district, by the way, that she's running in. And Mike Quigley, who's been on the record almost from the very beginning of all of this, urging Biden to step down and allow someone more competitive to run against Donald Trump. Senior aides to two other House Democrats also told Axios that their bosses plan to sign on. But what's interesting is what the DNC chair has to say. Jamie Harrison is the DNC chair, and he says, quote, "The suggestion that the timeline for the virtual roll call has been accelerated is false. The timeline for the virtual roll call process remains on schedule and unchanged from when the DNC made that decision in May." Yeah, but the DNC made that decision in May when they were under the assumption that Ohio's deadline would make it difficult or impossible for Biden to show up on the ballot. Now that they have changed the deadline until after the Democratic convention, there's really no excuse for holding that virtual roll call. We all know that.
Yeah, so I think Adam Schiff coming out against Biden, at least in a private meeting, is huge for a number of reasons. So he is among the most establishment politicians the Democratic Party has. So that means the establishment, along with Nancy Pelosi. I mean, it doesn't get any more establishment than that, other than Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, right? But now Hillary Clinton also seems to be indicating that she's worried about Joe Biden. James Carville is out there, and all of a sudden there's polls popping up saying Hillary Clinton would do better than Joe Biden. Oh, don't tell me the Clintons aren't involved in those polls. Anyway, my point is, he lost the establishment. That's his power base. He's got nowhere left to go, okay? So, and even Adam Schiff is soft pedaling it to those people that he's talking to. Because he says, well, look, under these circumstances, I'm really worried about losing the election. That means it's gone, okay? And remember, these politicians have politicians speak, and I'm bilingual, so I can translate it for you. I'm worried that we might lose the election is a thing they never say unless they think they're already toast, okay? Then he says, now I'm concerned about the House and the Senate. He's not concerned, he knows there's no chance of keeping the House or the Senate if Biden doesn't drop out, and that's what every pollster's saying. And now Greenberg, one of the top pollsters of the Democrats, is trying to get Biden's attention and tell him about how devastating the polling is. He's like, you have no idea how badly we're going to lose Congress. Which leads me to another point. Adam Schiff spent all this money to make sure that he had Steve Garvey, the Republican, as his opponent in his California Senate race. But Democrats are having some issues in California because of crime, homelessness, etc. That's why part of the reason why Garvey surged, part of it was the Schiff ads, and part of it was because Republicans are surging in California. I wonder if Adam Schiff is now starting to worry about losing his race in California.
That's a really good point, Cenk, that I hadn't considered. And remember, the Schiff campaign essentially propped up Garvey.
Yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, we can just, this is California. All we'll do is we'll say he's a Republican, and the voters of California will just outright reject him. And now that might not be the case. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, he might be starting to get a little nervous.
Yeah.
And so even if he's not losing, if he sees Garvey making big headway because all the Democrats are hurt because they're attached to Biden, then Adam Schiff, number one, starts to begin to worry about that. But secondly, he's got to get himself detached from Biden. Otherwise, they're going to put that albatross around all their necks. And they haven't even yet started running the ads. And in California, they'll run ads about how long did Adam Schiff know? How much did Adam Schiff lie to you about Joe Biden's mental state? Okay, and when those ads start, then the numbers really tank. So Adam Schiff, for all of his faults and all the things that I disagree with him on, is a savvy politician. So he's aware of all of those things. And the final thing about him, and why I'm making such a big deal out of this, is because like Pelosi, he's an avatar for the donors. So he talks to the donor class more than almost any Democrat does. So it's got to be his donors telling him, you got to help us. Your job is to follow our orders. And our new orders are get rid of Biden. He's not a good investment. We need someone else who can pay off for us.
So one other thing I wanted to mention is this incredible piece in Politico. They put it out today, and it has to do with what Nancy Pelosi is doing behind the scenes. Apparently, she is meeting with vulnerable Democrats in congressional races, and she's asking for polling in those districts to show essentially how much of a vulnerability Biden is, not just for the presidential election, but for these, tough races, congressional races for Democrats. So a lawmaker who spoke to Politico on condition of anonymity and represents a swing seat basically said that Pelosi asked detailed questions about congressional district level polling and was very receptive to concerns that Biden couldn't win in November. The member ended the phone call with the distinct impression that Pelosi believed Biden should in fact exit the presidential race. I think we already knew this. I mean, we knew that Pelosi felt that way. What's interesting is that she's meeting with these congressional Democrats in these difficult races, and she's asking for that data, probably to go to Biden and maybe make her case and try to persuade him behind the scenes to drop out.
And also, whichever donors are left on Biden's team, she's going to make the case to them that they should drop him. And once he runs out of money, then he's toast. So I cannot describe to you how unprecedented it is for pillars of the establishment to turn on each other in the Democratic Party. It never happens. So this is the first time I've ever seen it happen in my life. That's why it's extraordinary.
It never happens in regard to policy disagreements. Because remember, when it comes to legislation and policy, that has to do with something that impacts us. Right now, the division, including the very open and public, sniping, in my opinion, has to do with power, right? It has to do with themselves and how they want to hold on to power.
Yeah.
And so this power struggle that's going on is just fascinating to see, but also kind of gross because it gives you a sense of what the real priorities are here.
Of course, and then finally, look, the reason why they would do something so extraordinary is because they already know they're going to lose power.
Exactly.
So they would never do this unless they were positive Biden's going to lose and drag down Congress with him. Because it's one thing for me to say it. It's a whole different thing for Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff to say it. That means they think that Biden has a near 0% chance of winning. Just like I told you 9 months ago, and just like Biden's top advisors are now leaking to the press, near zero.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.